Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Nearly 2,400 Kaiser mental health professionals are on strike beginning today across Southern California. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. They are demanding restored pensions and guaranteed time for essential patient care tasks like developing treatment plans. They say their pay lags behind other Kaiser non-mental health employees in similar roles by as much as 40%. Michelle Cuevas has been a pediatric nurse psychiatrist at Kaiser for about 8 years.
When we think about this, many of us could just leave and go into private practice, but we don't because we care for our patients and we do recognize that there's so much more support of our communities.
In a statement, Kaiser says it has offered fair proposals, including wage increases of 18% over 4 years. They say increasing non-patient care hours would reduce patient care. The union members say that the strike isn't just about improving conditions for patients, it's also about the larger mental health crisis. Kaiser says patient care will continue during the strike. Negotiations will resume on October 23rd and 25th. With abortion a key issue this election cycle, local Democrats are supporting a plan to expand access to contraceptives. Several elected officials were joined by U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra today in Carmel Valley. They visited a pharmacy to talk about a rule change that would make over-the-counter birth control pills and condoms available free of charge. Women of reproductive age with private health insurance would be eligible.
You should not have to pay out of pocket to get the contraceptives that you need. And two, you should not have to come with a prescription in every case for certain types of contraceptives.
The Affordable Care Act allows for contraceptives without a copay as long as the patient has a prescription. The proposed rule change would remove that requirement. It would take effect after a 60-day public comment period.
Looking ahead to tonight, we'll have a few low clouds there near the coast, and we'll be dropping down to lows in the mid-50s if you're anywhere there along the coast. Though temperatures do play into the weather story this week, we'll tell you which areas are going to see a warm-up before starting to see them drop again as we head into the weekend.
It's nearly 9 months to the day after an overflowing storm channel flooded San Diego homes, making them unlivable. Now there's a call for accountability and transparency about the group charged with finding temporary homes for residents. KPBS reporter John Carroll tells us community advocates say it was disorganized and incompetent.
San Diego County contracted with Equus Workforce Solutions to organize and provide lodging for people left homeless by the January 22nd floods. But community activists like Claritza Marin of the Harvey Family Foundation say Equus failed in its responsibilities.
We had residents that called and reported complaining of being sent to hotels that had been shut down, complaining of having to repeatedly provide the same information over and over again, followed up with threats of being evicted if they didn't immediately comply.
Community advocate Tasha Williamson says Equus should have never been hired by the county in the first place. She told the story of one woman and her family that were staying at a motel. They ended up in the parking lot, she says, because of Equus's incompetence.
All of her belongings were in a parking lot with her 6 children, grandchildren, and dogs of the Ramada Inn because Equus failed to re-up their rooms.
Well, our communities have serious concerns with the response and, most importantly, the servicing under this contract.
4th District Supervisor Monica Montgomery Stepp also has concerns, so she's asking her fellow supervisors to approve an audit of the Equus contract. I asked Montgomery Stepp why she waited 9 months to request the audit.
it takes several months for us to do almost anything here at the county and in any bureaucracy, but it also would have taken several months to get a new contractor on board. So we really felt that we were stuck between a rock and a hard place.
STEP will introduce her call for an audit at Tuesday's Board of Supervisors meeting. We reached out to Equus for comment, but did not hear back by our deadline. John Carroll, KPBS News.
This fall, low-income community college students who live in Mexico but go to school in San Diego or Imperial County will pay in-state tuition. KPBS South Bay reporter Corey Suzuki says it's because of a new state law that goes into effect this year.
Good morning, buenos dias.
Good morning. When Tijuana resident Christopher Garcia first started at Southwestern College in Chula Vista back in 2021, it was really expensive. A big reason was the cost of non-resident tuition, which can add up to thousands of dollars every semester. Some weeks, Garcia would stay with a family member in Chula Vista just to keep his commuting costs down.
It was quite crazy, you know, because I have my family over there. I had literally my life over there in Tijuana. So, of course, it was like a big factor of like being sad, being emotional, not being with my family right now just for this.
But this semester, Garcia says things have been different. That's because last year, California lawmakers passed AB 91, which lets low-income students who live less than 45 miles south of the border pay in-state tuition at community colleges in San Diego and Imperial County. This morning, officials from San Diego and Baja California gathered at Southwestern for a celebration of the new law. State Senator Steve Padilla is a co-author of the legislation.
It's important that those of us that live and work here understand that we are one region, that we are Norte Americanos, somos nos, that we are linked together. Our economic and social futures are inextricably linked, and we have always recognized that.
Padilla says AB 91 demonstrates that connection and means increased access to education for students throughout Baja California. For Garcia, it also means less stress about money and the cost of the cross-border commute, and more time with his family.
Having the opportunity of even having like a meal with them, you know, in the afternoon or in the morning, it's been a great thing for me personally.
In Chula Vista, Corey Suzuki, KPBS News.
College students across California were arrested this year protesting university investments supporting Israel. KPBS reporter Katie Hyson says UC San Diego students are getting a crash course on legal defense.
In May, UCSD police arrested 60 student protesters. Annie Rios is the pro bono attorney coordinating their defense.
I accepted the task, not knowing that we'd be here 4 months later.
She says most California students were basically settling with their schools, showing remorse in exchange for lighter punishment. Her brain was racing.
One, can the school prove this? What they're alleging happened, can they prove it? And two, if the students accept responsibility, although it may be easier for them, in the long term, will this open them up to any kind of criminal liability?
She asked if they wanted to fight the charges. All 60 agreed. Dozens more attorneys and faculty members stepped in to help.
They were ready to steamroll them, thinking that they weren't going to have a community behind them.
UCSD responded to interview requests with a written statement. It supports free speech, but calls the May protest an illegal encampment and safety risk. Says the camp denied entry to a fire marshal and a health inspector, and they found some items that could be used as weapons, including a sword and bear spray. They wouldn't comment on individual cases. Rios doesn't think they have enough evidence.
None of it is personal. It's very much a description of group activities. The group was on the lawn. The group refused police instructions. The group.
If a written report is used against a student, a witness has to back it, and the student can choose to cross-examine them. In this case, the witness was a police officer.
Honestly, what went through my mind is this is going to be so hard. This is going to be so incredibly hard. I don't know who in their right mind would choose this.
Nearly all the students did. So she held boot camps.
What would happen if the witness said this? How do you do a cross-examination? Down to me actually showing video clips of my cousin Vinny.
Max Sklar was among them. They're Jewish, wear a keffiyeh, the Star of David, and a shirt that says, "Not in our name." Like the rest of the students, the school put a hold on Sklar's degree. Fighting the charges would prolong that. But to Sklar, it's a matter of principle.
It's David versus Goliath, and it's a really big giant, but, eventually David won.
They say the arrest report was copy-pasted for all the students, and the witness wasn't the officer who arrested Sklar.
I had actually never seen this guy. He had never seen me.
Sklar says they got him to admit he hadn't even read the report and wasn't a suitable witness.
It was one of those gotcha moments.
Lawyers aren't allowed to speak at student conduct hearings, but they can send messages.
I am losing my mind on the other side of this. I'm caps locking to Max. I can't believe you just got that.
Rios says one officer's allegations were false and bizarre.
The students had sharpened bits of wood into spears, that they had urine in gallons, and saying what I would consider particularly racist things. The Black Panther Party of San Diego was here roving and protecting the students, where then they were accused of teaching the students tactical warfare and chokeholds, as you're posing them as more dangerous than what they were for the purpose of having people fear them.
About a dozen students have gone through the process so far. She says regardless of their charges, they're all getting the same punishment. 1 year academic probation, 15 hours of community service, and a decision-making course that asks questions like, how did you harm the university?
I kind of was just a lot of us were harmed more by seeing their fellow students be arrested.
If the university decides Sklar's answers aren't good enough, they could tell them to redo it. Sklar needs their degree to apply for grad school. They want to become a therapist for incarcerated people. They say the effects of this will linger. Rios agrees.
There are students who have had suicidal ideation. There are students that weren't able to go home because they didn't know how to tell their parents that they had been arrested, and they were too ashamed to return.
She's worried probation will discourage free speech.
They will want to take part in some form of protest here on campus, but will constantly have to consider the effects of what that's going to do to them with the university. And I think that's done on purpose.
Hadaya Anaya is another arrested student. She says including her Palestinian ethnicity on her UCSD application was a risk, but she was accepted.
I was so excited and motivated and able to express a part of me that I've hidden for over 20 years.
Having to prove she's not a threat to the school soured that. But she says she won't stop calling on them to divest from Israel.
My voice will always come back. It's going to be a ringtone in Chancellor Kozla's ears.
She plans to become a lawyer like Rios. First, she needs the school to release her degree. Katie Heisen, KPBS News.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, with just over 2 weeks until Election Day, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump crisscross the battleground states. That's at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Vice President Kamala Harris is receiving some unconventional support in her race for the White House. Our Washington correspondent Julia Benbrook gives us a look at the latest developments in the race.
It's a part of an aggressive bid to win over independents and moderates, including those who consider themselves anti-Trump Republicans. Harris and Cheney are making stops in vote-rich suburban counties in 3 crucial battleground states: Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. States that tipped the 2016 election for Donald Trump and then swung back in Democrats' favor in 2020.
An unlikely duo on the campaign trail. Vice President Kamala Harris, the Democratic nominee for president, and former Representative Liz Cheney, who not that long ago was one of the top Republicans in the House of Representatives. The pair traveling to suburban counties in key swing states Monday. Cheney, a staunch conservative, voted to impeach Donald Trump, was primaried and ousted. She's a part of a growing group of Republicans who have said they believe the former president is a threat to democracy.
You have to choose in this race between someone who has been faithful to the Constitution, who will be faithful, and Donald Trump.
The Harris campaign views these appearances as a way to reach undecided and persuadable voters. Just last week, Harris rallied alongside more than 100 Republicans who have backed her candidacy.
No matter your party, no matter who you voted for last time, there is a place for you in this campaign.
Part of the group she's trying to reach, those who supported former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley in the Republican primary. Despite her blistering criticism of Trump, Haley endorsed him after dropping out of the race and spoke in support of his candidacy at the Republican National Convention.
She's supported me, and we had a great primary. It was an unbelievable primary. It was the fastest anyone's ever gone.
Trump's team is in talks with Haley about a potential joint appearance in these final weeks of the campaign. A source tells our team that no events have been finalized, but some of the discussions have centered around a Fox News town hall in late October. Reporting at the White House, I'm Julia Benbrook.
Time is officially up if you haven't registered to receive a ballot in the mail, but you can still get out your vote. The deadline to register to vote by mail-in was 5 p.m. today, but you can still register to vote provisionally in person at the county registrar of voters or at a local voting center before Election Day. This Saturday, 39 vote centers will open daily from 8 to 5. On Election Day, all vote centers and ballot drop boxes will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. You can also register to vote online at sdvote.com. And for more resources and information on all of the local measures on your ballot, you can check out the KPBS Voter Hub at kpbs.org. Well, much like other parts of San Diego, it's getting harder for renters and prospective homeowners to afford to live in Mid-City. iNewsSource reporter Crystal Niebla shares what this means for the local economy.
City Heights, Normal Heights, Kensington Talmadge, and the eastern area make up Mid-City. A draft of a city report shows that home values in the area have nearly quadrupled, and that's just over 22 years. But household income hasn't kept up with the growth in Mid-City. Instead, it remains below the city of San Diego's median. David Ely is an economist and a finance professor at San Diego State University. He said higher home values could translate to fewer contributions to the local economy.
That has direct implications for your quality of life. The more you spend on housing, the less you have to spend on other things.
And even while homeowners who are building equity can spend money, Ely warns that the local economy can still take a hit.
Because when you think about companies, organizations that need to hire people in San Diego, then you are challenged to attract people to San Diego for those jobs. It's very expensive to live in San Diego.
Many things can affect the housing market, but experts agree that creating more housing could lower prices. The city plans to release a final report on Mid-City later this year. The report will help city planners build and design in the area for the next 3 decades. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource reporter Crystal Niebla.
And this story is part of KPBS's Public Matters partnership with Voice of San Diego and iNewsSource. You can see more of our coverage at kpbs.org/publicmatters. The San Diego Unified School District says right now it doesn't have enough money to do what it wants for the next school year. The district is holding a workshop today. SD Unified is projecting a $176 million budget gap for the 2026 school year, way up from the $94 million a year ago. District leaders say many big districts around the country are facing similar issues stemming from the end of COVID relief, declining enrollment, and increased operational costs.
The state's funding formula does not consider the significant regional variations in staffing and other operating expenses, which we are advocating to change. In recent years, we've relied heavily on reserves to balance our budget. We now find ourselves in a situation where our reserves have rapidly depleted, and we must make significant cuts to current spending levels.
A possible way to make cuts is natural attrition, not filling vacant jobs that are not essential. The shortfall expected for the 2027 school year is estimated to be even larger at $230 million. Despite recent outbreaks of infectious and preventable diseases, fewer kindergartners are getting their routine vaccinations when compared to pre-pandemic times, according to a new report from the CDC. Mandy Gaither has more on the potential implications.
It's an alarming trend. During the 2023-24 school year, national kindergarten coverage with state-required vaccinations dropped to 93%, down from 95% between the 2019-2020 school year before the COVID-19 pandemic.
It's enlightening and not surprising with what we've been through in the last 4 years.
Dr. Jason Newland with Nationwide Children's Hospital says many infectious and preventable diseases aren't as prevalent anymore thanks to routine vaccines, but some are making a comeback. For example, this year alone, a total of 269 measles cases have been reported in more than 30 U.S. states as of October 17th. The CDC says 88% of those patients were either unvaccinated or their vaccination status is unknown.
Measles can be extremely dangerous, leading to life-threatening illnesses.
The CDC says vaccination is also the best defense against pertussis, but preliminary data shows more than 5 times as many cases have been reported at this time of year when compared to the same time last year.
Maintaining our vaccine rates, whether it's measles, whether it's pertussis, whether it's influenza, whether it's COVID, will make our society and our most vulnerable healthy and our future healthy.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
The CDC report also says the vaccine exemption rate has increased from the year before as well. A vaccine exemption is a way to avoid certain vaccines for medical, religious, or personal reasons.
I want to start you off with your weather headlines as we head throughout the week ahead. We are going to experience some warming across inland areas and also tapping into some of those low clouds early and late in the day, especially as we head into the later half of the week. Temperatures do dip slightly this weekend, though you're not going to see a dramatic change here. So nothing too big to be concerned about this week. Let's start you off with tonight's lows in your forecast. A few clouds in the sky if you're anywhere along the coast. Oceanside, you're at 50, San Diego 57. As we move further inland, Ramona, you are bottoming out at 45. Borrego Springs 55 and Mount Laguna 44. For our Tuesday, though, it's going to be overall pretty pleasant across this zone in the southwest. We don't really have too much action to be concerned about as well. The numbers, well, you're in the 70s by the afternoon, Oceanside, San Diego, and the 80s in Ramona. And then as we head even further inland towards the mountains, towards the deserts, highs are going to be running in the 60s there, right around Mount Laguna. Borrego Springs, you are at 94. Now, if we look at the next 5 days, you'll see that temperatures are rising slightly as we head into the middle of the week. Overall, pretty pleasant. Again, we don't really have too many concerns, though you will start to see the mercury drop just slightly. Again, you're not going to notice those big changes. Even as we start the weekend, still delightful. Yes, the wording in the forecast. For areas further inland, a similar story. We're rising here through the middle of the week, upper 80s there by Wednesday, and then you'll start to see a downward trend Thursday, Friday, even into Saturday, still hanging on to those 80s though. For the mountains, well, you'll see temperatures stay relatively steady, though you'll see a little bit of a cool down there Thursday, Friday, back up to 67. Again, we're forecasting for Saturday. Now, overall, steadier temperatures in the 90s here, though you will start to see those upper 90s peak back into the forecast Wednesday, though they do start to come down a little bit Thursday, Friday into Saturday. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Bree Guy.
Before we get to our last story of the night, here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On NPR's Morning Edition, a French philosopher discusses the ethics of creating AI chatbots that use a person's voice. And on KPBS Midday Edition, we are doing a breakdown of the local races San Diegans will see on their ballots. Young adults with disabilities are gaining valuable work experience while helping shelter dogs become more adoptable. KPBS health reporter Heidi DeMarco brings us this story about a program making a difference on both ends of the leash.
My name is D'Angelo. I've been working here for maybe 3 years now. Helping all these dogs is my goal in life, because every single one of these dogs here and other animals deserve a loving home and a caring family.
So we have 40 adults with special needs that come into the shelter 5 days a week, and they come in and volunteer, and they do tasks from laundry, making treats for the dogs, walking the dogs, helping with socialization, because a lot of people are scared to give adults with special needs job experience and allowing them to come in, because there are some obstacles that we have to overcome. But we at Animal Services, we noticed that the incredible benefit that it was not only to our animals, but to the adults that were coming in.
Animals have a way of drawing humans out of their shells. So sometimes they need that. Sometimes they're very sheltered, you know, in the kennel. And with D'Angelo especially, he's worked with a number of animals that were too timid to come out of their kennel. And he, with patience and, you know, it's okay, you know, he's had them, you know, to where they can come out of the kennel and able to socialize with other people and with other dogs as well.
You got to do me. Angelo is a perfect example. He came in 3 years ago. I was here on his first day and helped train him. Super shy, super withdrawn. So we've seen tremendous growth in him, and he would be a perfect candidate to be an animal care attendant once he gets, you know, enough experience.
It makes me feel confident in life that we come here to help all the animals. My family's proud of me because my mom especially wanted me to get a job here, and I told her I'm working my best to get a job so I can help all these animals get a home.
And that story was produced by Heidi DeMarco. You can find all of tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.